Our fourth question is, how do I stand up for truth? This question comes because so many of us feel surrounded by falsehood these days. But how we stand for truth has everything to do with the truth we stand for. The most true thing in the universe is God, with the most true thing about God being that God is love. We know that it's impossible to actually love God without loving neighbor. These two ideas are inseparable and irrefutable. Our living out of these two truths is not contingent on the behavior of anybody else. The love Jesus modeled is inconvenient, and as we attempt to live it out, we'll often feel maladjusted for the world we live in. That was true for Jesus, and it's true for us. What can fasten us tighter to these truths is a little courageous questioning of ourselves. Do I want to be right or win more than I want to advance God's truths? Are God's truths really my lived truths? We get insight if we look at how we spend our time and our money, how we disagree with one another, and the lengths we will go to win or get our way. If you're going to live God's truths, you'll need lots of inspiration and support. St. Paul spent a big portion of his letters trying to provide just that. He understood that falsehood is seductive and fast growing like weeds, but lives built on the love of God and neighbor are awe-inspiring but slow growing like a sequoia. He knew that we routinely mutilate even beautiful truths because of our commitments to fear and selfishness and greed. He knew falsehood had a fatal flaw, though. Despite its appeal, it's cheap and ultimately doomed. But until falsehood takes its last breath, you and I are in a contest. And while God has already won, each day, by how we live, we have the formidable privilege of bearing witness to that victory. How do we stand for truth? We close the gap between how we live and God's truths. We stare down despair, because as long as God is alive, there's hope. We stand boldly, gently, and purposefully amidst the falsehood in the world as an ambassador to a more excellent way. And we stand together. We understand that living God's truths can leave us feeling lonely, but we're not alone. There's a cloud of people who have stood for truth when it was their turn, and they're all around us. They're praying for us and cheering us on. Standing for truth will attract opposition, yes. Still, there's nothing that opposes us that's bigger than the one that compels us. We are co-laborers in the victory of good over evil and the victory of truth over falsehood. So like Paul said, having done everything to stand, keep standing.